Hey, y'all, not to break up the conversation, but we're going to go ahead and get started so we can stay on schedule for the end of the day. All right. Okay, you're fine. Yeah. I'm fine. I won't shush them too much. The end of the day is always tough. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. This one is the last session of the day, an hour long, what long-range planning can do for you. And as I'm sure you're aware by now, the QR code is at the back of the room, and then it'll be on the last slide on the screen when we finish up. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give it away to Andy to start. And are you shutting the door? Okay, cool. Thank you. I was going to go do that.
All right, thanks everybody. Like Jessica said, I'm Andy Bailey with the Transportation Planning Division. I'm one of the 4 transportation planning supervisors over the region. I've also got Amar Pillai here from the modeling group and Joe Shapira from the traffic forecast group. And we're going to try to put this together in an effort of what we do and then some of the tools and some of the products you get out of this. So again, we're going to go over what a CTP is, how it fits into the big picture of a plan and a project, an overview of the process. We're really going to focus on some information regarding useful pre-construction products that come from the CTP. We have a little bit about some regional case studies that we've done recently. There are also going to be tools for transportation planning. That's what Amar's going to go over with travel demand models. And then last but certainly not least, Joe's going to go over the traffic forecast that many of you are aware of in project development. So again, what is a CTP? It's a 25 to 30 year long-range multimodal transportation plan that is unphysically constrained. This is a needs-based plan. Again, everything has to have a need for us to move forward in project development, such as purpose and need. It is a community consensus with the support and is mutually adopted by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. It's developed cooperatively through our local stakeholders, the MPOs or RPOs and NCDOT. It evaluates all modes of travel and also considers other modes of travel such as rail or such as ferry and air. Some of you were in here for the last session regarding the STIP and the prioritization process. Where we supersede that. We're pre-construction work where we do determine the need, and then it goes through prioritization, project development, planning, programming, design, construction, and maintenance. Don't want you to read all this, just to tell you that we have about 5 phases in the CTP. We do have a setup phase and then a closeout phase, which is more the paperwork and get data gathering on our side. But what you need to know is we do develop a vision, and this includes goals and objectives from the local area and also a survey of the citizens of that jurisdiction. Then we go through a system assessment where we evaluate all modes of travel, both current and future year, usually 25 to 30 years in the future. Then we go through analyzing alternatives. This is anything from widenings to new locations to any other multimodal recommendation. And then we develop the draft plan, go through some final public involvement, and then we do adoptions. Especially in an RPO, we actually go to each jurisdiction and county, and then we go to the RPO for endorsement. And MPOs, the MPOs are the governing board, and they're the ones who adopt it. And then it goes to the Board of Transportation for adoption, and then we complete our report and publish it. So I just want to discuss a few things regarding useful pre-construction products from the CTP. One of these is community characteristics assessment. Then we have alternative analysis. We have what we call CTP project sheets or problem statements. And throughout, of course, we have public involvement. Some things involved with community characteristic assessments is the CUR. I'm going to a little bit of that in just a minute. Community understanding report. We also have environmental features maps. This is the same information that you get from Atlas, which I know some of you in project development know a lot about or are aware of. We also have demographic profiles and maps, including some of the Title VI and environmental justice maps. And of course, we also put together a public involvement plan, a stakeholders list, of which the steering committee members are formed from. Community understanding report goes through various different aspects of understanding the community in the context that it's in, things like population, the projections themselves, diversity, community character, some of the more important community type centers, emergency response, which is much more important now than it ever has been, economic conditions, what some of their development goals are long-term, farming, natural resources, and of course, transportation choices within the community. Where's this stuff used beyond the CTP? Well, this is a list that is very difficult to see. I can actually see it better there than I can here. But it shows you there are various stages of project initiation, which do things from the project sheets, project forms, and so forth. And then also there's a lot of information that is carried on to project development. I'm hoping this is going to be available after the conference, so you all can take a better look at this and understand where this information may be used from the CTP phase. And then, of course, we have the alternative scenarios analysis. This is where we have a consistent methodology with documentation, creating an establishment of unreasonableness criteria that where they fail to meet the community vision, which we talked about regarding goals and objectives and the survey of what people actually want for the community. It fails to address a deficiency. So if we put a line on a map and it doesn't do anything, then why are we building it? And also it has unacceptable levels of impacts to both the natural and human environment. You know, we're not going to go through the side of a mountain. We're not going to go through a environmentally sensitive human environment area either. Again, a multi-tiered screening process includes applying any possible land use scenarios. This happens. Usually this has actually happened quite a bit at the MPO level recently, but we're trying to get this also to the RPOs. And then the types of project proposals are sometimes we have the final project proposal that we've selected after going through our process, which can then help inform the project development process for those unreasonable alternatives. And we also, so again, we go through, we conduct the analysis itself. We detailed through the analysis screen. We have several of the same kind of checklists that you have about how many parcels this is going through, what kinds of human or natural environment this is going through, what kinds of impacts it has. You draw a line, you're able to get all this via GIS, and be able to detail that with the screening, and then document all this with different tables within the project sheet, within other alternatives that you've been able to study. Okay, so after that's done, we formulate what is our final recommendation, at least in terms of the CTP, and our project sheets. And so this helps define the project proposals. It's intended to be the foundation of purpose and need. Purpose and need, of course, may be more specific or may change a little bit based upon scope. And it also supports some of the planning and environmental linkages and provides information for prioritization, which is the next step, as well as scoping. And what do they include? Of course, they include the identified need, project data, information, typical sections that we have, any history that we have, any community vision goals that relate to it, comments, impacts, land use. I mean, you have a lot of information within these 2 to 3 page documents that you can work from when starting your project proposals. And so where does this fit into project development? This fits in terms of the PDN. It also fits into express design, which of course has the identified need and purpose, the environmental context, and some of the initial public and stakeholder involvement. It helps inform prioritization, which is the category of need, the justification of need, the solution with supporting information. And then project scoping reports itself, which are the project initiation form, screening checklist, detailed technical report, and merger process documentation. The problem statement information can be used in both the project initiation packet and information, as well as, of course, NEPA documents to show that this has legs beyond when NEPA started. I'm not going to read terribly too much into this, but public involvement, I had spoken about it, developing the vision, the goals and objectives. We really try to get the public involved at a very early stage to understand what planning is and what it isn't, and get their initial ideas of what the issues are in their communities, both qualitative and quantitative. We develop the draft plan itself, and then we go around and we have at least some initial draft meetings where we go and ask for public involvement about some of the recommendations we've made. We may also do this during some of our alternative scenario analysis. And then during the adoption of the plan, this goes before a public hearing for one last public involvement when they're being adopted. So one of the other things on the agenda for this presentation was to give you an idea of some of the regional CTP case studies that have been done over the past few years. I've been fortunate enough to be able to be the supervisor that went over both of these efforts, and I wanted to share that this was an NCDOT initiative about just simply getting like jurisdictions, in this case like 3 counties, to work together on similar types of proposals that cross boundaries. It improves efficiencies. It's 1 study versus 3 studies. So this, even though it took longer than 1 study would, the 3 separate studies would have taken a lot longer than this study would have. So we started with the Foothills area, which is, let me get this right, McDowell, Polk, and Rutherford County, and then Davie-Surry-Yadkin County in the Northwest Piedmont RPO. So just to give you a little bit of background, look how many plans there are. There's plans for towns, there's plans for counties. They overlap. They don't necessarily line up in terms of when they were done. They may have information that was contained in one but not contained in another. Same thing with the Davie-Surry-Yadkin. In this case, there were 6 for 3 different counties, some municipal and some county. So the initial approach, just to give you some perspective about how agile we are with these plans. In Foothills, we had one particular county, Polk County, that had a lot of history based upon one particular project in their area. So we dove deep into Polk County itself and said, let's formulate a deep dive into Polk County to make sure we're not missing anything from that area while we're doing the regional plan. The other 3 counties, they were adopted in a similar time period, and there wasn't quite as much controversy based upon some of their larger recommendations that they made. So this one was quote unquote a little simpler in that case, although this one has taken longer for a variety of reasons. So again, we had regional steering committees put together. Polk County had a specific one there in the Foothills. Again, we did a goals and objectives survey. I've got Dominique Boyd here, who was the PM on this. In Polk County, we actually sent out 8,000 paper copies, paper surveys with return address envelopes to every household in Polk County. And the reason why we did this is the transparency or lack of transparency that we had been perceived at NCDOT for a project that had come down the pipe earlier in this county and everybody was fighting against. We ended up getting over 16% back, which was, I mean, quite a remarkable, for those of you that know about surveys, anything above 5% is usually pretty good. So I thought that was a pretty good return. Again, this happened during COVID, so we had some public involvement meetings, some that were hybrid, some that were in person. And we updated recommendations based upon public feedback as well as information from the committee. One other thing we did was we met with each county commissioner and really made sure they bought into it before we went to a an adoption in Polk County. And the reason why this was important was because we probably had about 2 hours of public involvement where there was a lot of, I wouldn't say negative, but definitely concerning voices from the public about adopting the plan because they were worried they were going to get another project shoved down their throat. And because we had involved the county commissioners in this process and made sure that they're aware of all the recommendations, we were able to get it passed with no dissenting votes. So real quick, I just want to show you the CTP report itself, just a little bit of information. This is the regional map. This is a Polk County specifically, which actually you can't see from here, but it has numbers on it, and those numbers correspond with our project list, which has the basic purpose and need and the definition of where the project is. And then that information leads into the project sheet, same number, same everything there, and it maps out all those different things that I told you earlier about that was in the project sheet regarding background and information related to this, including public support, which may be helpful when starting the project itself when it gets funded. Real quick, Davies-Uriak was a little bit simpler. We had less public survey response on this. It was done for an entire region. The region seemed to get along pretty well, trusted each other. Again, we did a hybrid approach here with the public workshops, and the local governments and the RPO. They adopted these at the end of the calendar year. We have some review going on internally, and it should be to the Board of Transportation soon, likely by the end of the year. And so just some real quick things about benefits about why doing a regional CTP might be something to look at. It's because it does promote time efficiencies. It did take shorter to get this done in one than 3 different studies would have gotten. It provided cross-collaboration, communication, subject matter experts when needed. It coordinated between truly regional projects, US 74, which goes through Polk and Rutherford, which is slated potentially to be an interstate highway, things like that we got a buy-in to get from both communities on that. A more uniform product that would be for a regional area in the same time frame, same analysis time frame. And it helped, again, like I said, with the county commissioners, but also with the public. We had ample opportunity to educate the public about transportation itself, in addition to just simply what CTPs were. Some of the challenges, trying to coordinate with all the jurisdictions was a little challenging at times. And of course, this was a longer time commitment. It did take longer than a county CTP may have. It tended to sometimes focus when you have loud voices in the room, they tend to focus on their particular need or want, and you kind of have to recenter that sometimes. It was difficult to reach consensus at times with some of the varying stakeholders that you had. And of course, the length of time since the last adoption could impact the level of detail you need to go into. And again, this was Polk County, which was done back in the 2000s versus the other 2 counties, which were done in the 10s. Some of the takeaways, again, like I was saying before, this can be flexible and nimble regarding a deep dive versus something that's more regional. Good to have a larger steering committee that fosters collaboration across boundaries. It's innovative. We did the survey. The survey distribution by mail is not innovative at all. That is the oldest form of surveying, is to actually mail stuff out. But rekindling that and reaching people, especially in this area that had, at the time at least, very low broadband coverage, helped to make sure we were reaching the people that may want a voice but don't have the ability to do so via a cell phone or internet. And again, continuity is an issue. The team member longevity, especially right after COVID, we had a lot of people moving, a lot of people retiring. Our committee changed, so we had to re-educate people along the way. And this is maybe more of a personal opinion, but I think I have some buy-in from some of my folks here. I think getting elective people on your committee, or at least involved and up to date, really helps along the process, not only to get it adopted, but for them to understand both the CTP and also what happens down line, and understanding that the CTP is the first stop and that further on, they're going to be the ones that are going to be picking which projects get funded out of the CTP, or at least which projects will be submitted to prioritization. And then schedule with cushion in mind, told you about the turnover. And also other considerations, and I'm going to kind of go to Amar on this here in a minute. Consider regional travel demand model development. For example, Polk County was developed before a travel demand model was for that area, so we had to, so that is something that was not a model. It was more of a manual allocation of growth on particular roads. And again, this may be a little bit easier to do based upon, I believe it's section 160D, I think that's what it's called, Senate, and it talks about having zoning requirements. And important for the steering committee to be willing to work together. That's pretty obvious, but sometimes you never know until you get them in the room. And then, consider educating all parties early and often throughout the process, and at the beginning, especially at the end. And of course, we have some future regional CTPs in the process. I think Dominique may have one coming up, potentially in the north and east of the triangle. And we also have and I'll let Amar go more into this, different regional travel demand models being developed. So with that, if you have any questions for me at the end, I'd be happy to take them. This is just if you really want to look for CTPs, just type in these into the Google and you'll find them. And these are 2 links to each of the regional CTPs that I presented. But for now, I'm going to pass it off to Amar for his presentation. Is that it?
I think he's up. Right? Is that yours? Yeah, okay. I think it's right.
Thank you, Andy. So Andy introduced the concept of long-range transportation plans. And with any plan, we also want objective metrics that we can gauge how effective the plan is. So with respect to transportation planning, the most commonly and popularly used metric is traffic volumes. So if I want to find the traffic volume for a particular location, I just take a count and I get a metric. But how do we assess that for future years? And typically there are 2 ways. One is using a trend line analysis, and other is using a travel demand model. So trend line analysis, as the name suggests, we know what has happened in the past. We have past data, and we can project that to the future. It could be linear, it could be exponential, or it could be declining. But the shortcoming of that method is if you want to do any kind of what-if analysis. So what if there's a 500-home subdivision coming to town? How is that going to affect the system? Or if there's a new employer coming to town, how is that going to affect the system? Or if I want to introduce a new mode, light rail or a bus, how does that affect the system? Or if I want to introduce an element of toll, how is that going to affect the system? To do these kind of analysis, we need a travel demand model. And using a travel demand model is a proactive approach to planning because in the end we get a metric, which is the volume, which can be measured, and what can be measured can be managed, and what can be managed can be improved upon. And this is the essence of a good planning process. So what is a travel demand model? A travel demand model is a model that captures the interaction between land use and transportation. So any kind of change in land use or transportation, we can evaluate what the impact on the system is going to be. This is the structure of a travel demand model. It starts with an input, and then we have 4 steps: trip generation, trip distribution, mode choice, and assignment. And each of the steps answers a very specific trip-making trait of that region. And at the end of it, we get a final output with which we make decisions. So I'll quickly go over the 4 steps. So the first one is trip generation. Suppose you have a location that has so basically trip generation is how many trips are produced or attracted to a location. So if you have a subdivision that has 100 homes and produces an average of 10 trips a day, we say the trip generation for that location is 1,000 trips. So the next question is, where do those 1,000 trips go to? Do they go to the neighboring locations? Do they go to the adjacent cities, to the downtown, maybe outside the county? So this question is answered in the step called trip distribution. And we do this through a process called gravity model. And as the name suggests, it's based on Newton's theory of gravity. The bigger you are and the closer you are, the harder you attract. So think of it as a simple example. Imagine I'm living in a neighborhood with a neighborhood Harris Teeter. And I have a super Walmart 5 miles down the street. So I might do my weekend shopping at the Walmart, but if I'm running out of milk in the morning or dinner ingredient at night, I might make more frequent trips to the Harris Teeter. Now flip that example. I'm living next to the super Walmart and there's a Harris Teeter 5 miles down the street. Chances are I'll never go to the Harris Teeter 5 miles down the street because all my needs are met with the super Walmart. So this is size and distance playing a role in my decision-making process. The next step is mode choice model. And this is often the most complicated, cumbersome process in a model. And in many cases, it's so skewed towards autos, we don't even use a mode choice model, so we remove that and make the 4-step model a 3-step model. But mode choice has its place. So for example, if I want to travel somewhere, just hop in my car, drive to the nearest parking spot, and walk over to my destination. Now imagine this is, we're traveling in uptown New York City. So hopping in my car, fighting through all the traffic, then spending an hour finding a parking spot in uptown New York, finding one for $50 an hour, suddenly taking a bus seems more convenient. So typically, the larger urban and more dense areas have an advantage using a mode choice model. And the last step is called trip assignment. What route do I take? So here's a simple example. So imagine 2 locations. One has all the homes and the other has all the jobs. And there's about 3,000 trips going from the homes to the jobs every day. And there are 2 ways to get there. One is a freeway, 65 miles per hour, capacity of 2,000, and one is an arterial, 45 miles per hour with the capacity of 1,000. So imagine this is day 1, and the travelers have no idea what has happened in the past. Most likely all the travelers are going to take the freeway. So the 3,000 trips take the freeway, but the capacity is only 2,000, so a lot of congestion, not a good picture. Day 2, a portion of the drivers think, there's an empty arterial to the south. I can take that. So about 1,250 drivers take the arterial, but the arterial has a capacity of only 1,000. So again, congested. So this process goes back and forth till the whole system comes to an equilibrium. And this is how assignment happens in real life. Like if we have a new neighborhood street, people would test the waters, travel, and in a few weeks, we have an established pattern. If larger facilities like interchanges take several years before they reach equilibrium. So this is the 4 steps of the model, and at the end of which we get certain outputs. The common ones are volumes, congested speed, volume to capacity ratio, travel times, vehicle miles traveled, vehicle hours traveled. So how do we use this? Simple example, John Doe Boulevard, it's a principal arterial with a capacity of 12,000 and posted speed of 50 miles per hour. In 2024, the volume is 11,000, volume to capacity ratio is 0.85. So it's not congested, but it's getting up there. And the congested speed is 35 miles per hour. I run my travel demand model, and for the future year 2055, the volume is 15,000, the volume to capacity ratio is 1.25, so clearly congested. And the congested speed is 25 miles per hour, which is a 50% drop. So what do we do here? So many different solutions possible. We can widen the road, but if the right-of-way is too expensive, we can look at a parallel facility. If that's not possible, maybe add a new facility. If that's not possible, maybe we could think about adding a new mode. And sometimes even doing nothing is a solution. So for example, if you have a busy, bustling street in the downtown, that is a good sign. It's a sign of economic vitality. Nobody wants an empty street in the middle of downtown. So there's no set solution. The model spits out results. It's us as professionals have to decide, what's the ideal solution for that problem. And also, we have to be very careful when we use a travel demand model because it's based on a lot of grand assumptions that demographics can be forecasted correctly. We are very much at the mercy of Mr. Market. External factors don't affect us. We're just 2 years out of a global pandemic. Nobody saw that coming. Future conditions can be predicted. They can't. We don't know what disruptive technologies are coming up, what the price of oil is going to be in the future, or even, is there going to be a war that could change a lot of things. And lastly, human beings behave rationally. So most economic models assume human beings behave rationally, but humans have a lot of unique biases and tendencies that cannot be rationally explained. So we have to be a little careful how we use model. So how should the model be used? So generally when we build a model, we aim at accuracy and precision. So what is accuracy? Accuracy is how close does the model result compare to actual results, and precision is how close do model results compare to each other. And for the overall model, we try to aim for both within the margin of error. But if we look at a particular corridor or a sub-area, it may be off in varying degrees and may not exactly sing hallelujah. So with that being said, we never take raw model volumes as forecasts. So it's typically used for scenario testing, for transportation planning, for project prioritization, like what we do in the STIP. It is used in a traffic forecast and not as a traffic forecast, which Joe will cover in some more detail. And traffic shifts, if we add a new mode or if we add a new facility, how does the traffic flow shift happens? And a model should not be used, again, as a forecast and to predict major paradigm shifts like COVID or any kind of technological breakthrough, things like that. So a quick update on the state of affairs of modeling in North Carolina. So we have a wide array of models, ranging from the statewide model to regional models that have multiple MPOs, MPO models, and urban area models. And this is the map that shows all the different models in the state. And you can see that there's a lot of gray in between, no pun intended. So whenever we try to do a study in the gray areas, one of the biggest time-consuming aspects is developing a model for that. So to address that, we are proposing dividing the whole state into regions, and each region would have its own standalone model. That way, the whole state is covered, and if we want to do any study, lack of a model is not going to hold it up. So with that, I'll hand it over to Joe, who will go into the details of forecasting.
Thank you, Amar. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joe Sharippa. I'm with the Traffic Forecasting Group within the Transportation Planning Division. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about traffic forecasts. But before I get into this too deeply, I noticed that Andy and Amar used lots of slides that had color. They used up all the color, so most of my slides are going to be black and white. So let's start off with what is traffic forecasting? Well, one of the first things I did was look at Wikipedia because they have the answers to everything. So I thought, how do they define traffic forecasting? And they defined it as, well, they don't. There isn't an entry for traffic forecasting, but they do have an entry for transportation forecasting. It's funny because they spend about 1 or 2 paragraphs on forecasting, and then the whole rest of the thing is on travel demand modeling. But that's okay. How they define it is the attempt of estimating the number of vehicles or people that will use a specific transportation facility in the future. And I like the word attempt in there because they don't say it is the number of vehicles or that is or will be the number of vehicles. It's an estimate. And as my supervisor, Travis Marshall, likes to say, if you can predict the exact number, well, then give me the number for the lottery next week, and we could do that. So what is it? Project level forecasts estimate future traffic volumes, like we mentioned, for defined highway projects. It also assesses transportation performance under different assumptions about supply and demand. We typically look at a 20 to 30-year planning horizon when we're doing our forecasts. And project level forecasts are key inputs into many studies, whether they're roadway intersection or pavement design or environmental studies, which lead to the construction of improvements. We also prepare traffic estimates, which provide a little bit less of a deep dive than project-level forecasts. Estimates rely on existing data. We usually don't need to order turning movement counts to develop estimates. And another level of traffic estimate involves what we call express design traffic volumes, or EDTV. It's something that's relatively new in what we do. That, again, is a little bit less of a deep dive, but it's a whole nother process that would probably could use its own presentation. Okay, so why do we do this? Well, number one, there are federal laws and federal requirements and guidelines for doing this. There's code that says that we need to provide facilities that will adequately serve the existing and planned future traffic of highways in a region. And we need to do it in a way that's safe and durable, as well as provide some measure of an economy of maintenance. Traffic forecasting is required for air quality analysis as well. And major investment projects and highway design projects that are undertaken by the federal government require traffic forecasts. And to help us do that, there are recommended best practices and guidelines that have been produced. The NCHRP report 765 is one such document that shows those guidelines. How are traffic forecasts used? Well, forecasts are the foundation for determining project purpose and need, especially if there's capacity or congestion is the primary purpose of the particular project. Forecasts are essential for developing project alternatives. If you need to look at more than one way to create a project and you want to analyze and assess those individual projects, a forecast can help you do that. And they determine the amount or the quantity or location of volumes that inform roadway design, work zone traffic control, structural design, and so on. If we need to build a bridge over or replace a bridge over a particular road, they need to know how much volume that bridge is going to carry, so they design the proper bridge for that particular case. Who uses traffic forecasts? Well, pretty much everyone, really. Anyone designing a roadway project or looking for cost estimates for that roadway project? Anyone submitting a project for our prioritization uses forecasts. City, state, county governments, as well as MPOs and RPOs use forecasts. And of course, our NCDOT divisions and other units. Some of our biggest customers are the NCDOT divisions, feasibility studies unit, corridor development unit, structures management unit, and so on. So what's included in a traffic forecast? Well, first thing is we collect and review and process data. Mostly annual average daily traffic information, or AADT. We look at the past 10 to 20 years to see what traffic has been like, historically for that area. We look at pre-existing traffic counts. We look at previous traffic forecasts as well, if there's one that's available for the project area. We look at land use plans, regional transportation plans, demographic data. And a big one is input from local planners and engineers. These are the folks that generally live in that project area, or at least in the county or nearby, and they know a lot more about what's going on around that project area than we do. So we look at information from them as well. And of course, we do on-site field investigation as well. We determine relative trends in the historic data. We have tools that help us evaluate that historic AADT that we've been using for a while, and we update these tools fairly regularly. We utilize the local travel demand model if there is one that's available for our project area. Travel demand model is an incredibly useful tool for estimating growth in a project area. And it's pretty much what we use it. We never, as Amar mentioned, we never take the number directly from the model and say that's what the volume is. But we use that information to help inform us about the growth in the area. We develop a base year no-build forecast. These are primarily developed with existing traffic count data. It includes ADT, intersection turning movement counts, your peak hour factors, Ks and Ds, which is direction and hourly factors, as well as truck percentages. And then we develop future year no-build forecasts. We apply model or historic ADT growth to the base year no-build volumes. Amar mentioned in one of his slides about the two different ways to use that, two different ways to determine that trend is a trend line analysis or using the growth from the model. We review and adjust the volumes based on future land use changes, and then we balance the final traffic volumes. Develop the build forecast. Then we apply model diversion rates to the no-build volumes, and then adjust to maintain reasonable traffic flows and balance the volumes across the network to get our build case. And then finally, we document our results and assumptions where we prepare volume diagrams and a traffic forecast report. Okay, so what can a traffic forecasting group do for you? Well, there's several things that we do. We can provide new project-level traffic forecasts for any project that that requires a traffic forecast. We can also evaluate an existing traffic forecast if it's available and if it's there, to see if it needs to be updated or whether or not the information from that existing report is still accurate and valid. And then we also can review traffic forecasts that are prepared by professional engineering firms. We don't do every forecast in the state of North Carolina. Some are done by professional engineers for other projects, but we can evaluate those and review them. So why use the traffic forecasting group? Well, experience, access, and environment. TFG staff, there are five of us, and we have over 80 years of experience in transportation planning. We have access to the Model Research and Development Group. That's part of the group that Amar is part of, as well as MPO and RPO coordinators, and also the traffic survey group. We work with these folks day in and day out, every day, and have very good working relationships and rapport with them, and we exchange information all the time. So if you'd like to prepare a project-level traffic forecast, we have an email account, trafficforecast@ncdot.gov, so that you can use to request a forecast and to communicate with us about anything forecast-related. We will assign a forecast engineer using either our in-house staff or, depending on the complexity or workload, we have a number of on-call professional engineering firms that we use to provide forecasts for you. Typical time for delivery is about 2 to 6 months to prepare a full forecast, obviously depending on the complexity of it. And evaluate, if you need to evaluate an existing forecast. Again, the same email account that you can use to let us know that you need an update, or whether we need to evaluate whether there should be an update. We research any land use changes in the STIP or metropolitan transportation plans that might indicate a need for an update. And of course, we can provide a report and recommendation if you so choose. Review a traffic forecast prepared by PEF. Again, if there's a forecast out there that you don't know if it's still valid for your particular project, let us know, send us a note, and we'll review it for consistency and with published policies and guidelines, and we can prepare final comments and approval. And with that, that's it for my presentation. That's my, what do you call it? My email, if you need to reach me for any reason. And that's your.
So our standard is every 5 or so years, but it depends on the complexity of the area. Some places change very rapidly. We keep on top of those. There are some movements going on within our division about doing what I like to call minor updates or minor revisions based upon new information that may be done at a much less than 5-year clip. But then we also have other areas that just hit our native growth and have no growth. There just isn't a need to update them every 5 years. So it really depends upon the area, and unfortunately sometimes depends on the availability of staff.
For traffic forecasts, so once you have a project that's has been built or project is essentially finished, do you guys by any chance like I'm sure it's been for a couple of years, do you guys compare like if the traffic forecast was completed back in 2010, do you kind of compare those like what you forecasted back then to what actual volumes are once the project is complete?
Almost never. And that's because so many things change, even in the process of, from the forecast of before the project is actually completed. Land use changes, assumptions change. I mean, you may be thinking there's a Walmart coming down the road, and then eventually it doesn't come, and things just change so much that it's hard to really compare that forecast with the current volumes of the day. This just gives us an estimate, an idea of what we think is going to happen in the future. Obviously, nobody can predict the future perfectly, but it's a best guess, I guess. That's what traffic forecasting does. That's a good question.
I've looked back for posterity's sake, and they're almost always wrong. Plus or minus. It's actually amazing how some of the older forecasts that were done well before my time are very, very short of what the volumes are today. So that means we are building in the right locations. That's a good sign.
And oftentimes you can't, I mean, when Raleigh in North Carolina had the big growth, big boom in growth, and all of a sudden everybody's, moving to North Carolina, how do you predict that? It's difficult to do. And, it's just difficult to do. It's given these set of assumptions, given this is what we want to build, this is what's there now, this is what we think is going to happen, this is likely what the traffic volume is.
Any other questions? All right. Well, let's give them a round of applause. Okay. And there's the QR code. I think most of y'all got it. If not, it's also on the wall as you exit. And yeah, thanks for coming to this year's pre-construction workshop. Hope you found it useful, and safe travels home. Thanks.